Well, for the past 2 business days, I was busy relocating some crates off-road. So I was using my skid steer with forks. And imagine this, you're in the middle of the field and you have like a row upon row upon row of these super flimsy crates. Like the bottom is, just the bottom is wood. Then there's cardboard, and inside that cardboard is some precious fragile cargo, kind of like a glass, right? And so I learned a few tips over these past 2 days. Well, it was like today's Tuesday, so I did this Friday last week, and Monday was the holiday, and today Tuesday. And I learned a few tricks how to use forks properly on a skid steer in a situation like this where you have a bunch of boxes or crates parked close next to each other, and the cover is super flimsy cardboard and the contents are super valuable. So tip number one, these are your forks, right? So you want to make sure that you put something, some kind of a foam on these parts in here. Basically it looks like, you know, like a tube. You know, I went to our, you know, where we get our tools, and it's like a tube made out of foam. And so you get some duct tape, and so you put that on the top of your fork, because the forks, believe it or not, like the metal has very sharp edges, and since the crates are made out of cardboard, not even plywood, it's super easy to just go through, you know, even with just where the fork is, you know, like the actual fork where the lock, it has very sharp angles, and if you come too close, so you can damage the crate. So it's always a great idea when you're dealing with flimsy crates to have some kind of a foam protection on your forks. That's tip number one. Tip number two, when you come to the crate, you position one of your forks as if it's ready to go inside the opening at the bottom, and then you just see, okay, what do you have to do to, you know, move your forks, right? You gotta make them narrow or wider, but you come close so that it's easy, you know, and then you open that lock and you make them wider and more narrow. And of course, the wider the better, because then the crate will be stable. So yeah, tip number two is forks position. Now, when the crates are like this, one thing I found is that it's super dangerous. Like, I was working with another guy, and I started taking crates from here. What am I showing? Yeah, I was doing like this, boom, 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 boom. He started taking them from here and here. Actually, no, he started taking them from here. So he was going in between 2 rows of crates. And one thing I learned pretty quick is that you don't want to do that, you know, especially in a skid steer or even a forklift, because you know, of course it depends on how big your crate is, right? But when you go into this maze of crates, if you're not careful, you can damage, like when you pick up your crate, right? And let's say you're inside this kind of like a corridor, right? And there's crates on your left and on your right. If you're not careful, you know, especially like a skid steer, it's just one joystick, right? Without even realizing it, you can graze it, you can graze one of the boxes with your tracks, you know. So you have to be perfectly, you know, straight, and that's difficult, you know, when your visibility is limited as it is in the skid steer. And like in my skid steer, I don't have a camera, I don't have a backup camera, and so that idea is pretty bad. So it's always when a situation like this where you have like 200 crates, you just start moving them in a row, you know, because you pick up this one, right away you move up and this way. You pick up this one, you move up and away from the rest, right? Up and away. And like row by row works perfect. You don't want to go inside, you know, because I saw one guy, like I'm doing this row by row, and this other guy who was working with me, he starts coming here, because it's very tight, he just drags them out from this side and he turns them around. And like I was okay for like 10-15 minutes, then I see that I'm doing like 10 crates while he's doing 3. And so finally I went over, I stopped my machine, I said, 1 second, can we just do it like this? So I said, you start from here, I start from here, and we go towards each other. Once we reach the middle, we go to the next row. Can we do it like this? And the guy says, okay. And we started doing it like that, and involuntarily, and there were only 2 of us, we created a pattern where we're going clockwise. You know, like he picks up, or counterclockwise, no, clockwise. He picks up a crate, like here, he goes this way, and then I'm dropping mine here, I'm coming back, I'm picking this up, and I'm following him, you know. And it was beautiful. It was like a piece of music, you know. And even at the end, when we cleared a big section, this guy stops me and he says, yeah, your method works. I said, you saw how we were doing this? Like basically, yeah, you wanna stay out of the way of other machines, right? That's what I'm always doing. I don't want to be next to each other, right? So you want to be on the opposite sides, and that's why I was telling this guy. I said, yeah, you like this side or you like this side? He says, I like this side. I said, okay, you start from here, I'll start from here, and we go kind of like in a circle, so that we are not, you know, in each other's way. That's valuable tip. But the most important thing, like 2 tips. So you come to a crate from the side, you know, you come to a crate and you have to put your forks in here, but we are talking about a rough terrain, right? So it's never guaranteed that this area will be level. Like in our case, when we were working, there was snow, and there was actually kind of like a berm, you know, when they were creating that road in the middle of the field. I'm guessing it was a dozer, so some of the material spilled on the sides, right? And so you have a bunch of these crates, and right in front of them you have this berm. Now guess what the skid steer is doing when you're trying to come in with your forks and you're watching as a hawk, because you don't want your hawks to go up into the crate, because it's cardboard, right? And the forks are like knives, like they're this wide and they're sharp as a heck. I don't know. So you're watching your forks, and when you're on the level ground, let's say you come in on the level ground, okay, so you put your forks perfect position, you're not touching the ground, you're not touching the bottom of the actual crate, but you're right in that opening we have to be. And then guess what, as soon as your tracks go in this mess like snow or berm of dirt, your forks go like this, and if you're not careful, you're just gonna slice it right through that crate, you know. And so that's one very important tip I learned, is that it's super important to come really slow, come to the crate, and again, we're not talking about a factory or somewhere on the pavement, we're talking about dirt, where these crates are parked in the dirt. And so you got to be super careful and watch your forks when your tracks or wheels, if you have a wheeled loader, go on this berm or snow in front of a crate, you know, because you want it to correct. So that's super important. But the most important tip I learned is the one I left for the end of this super powerful tutorial. You have two crates. You have two crates, and they're parked 1 inch away from each other, right? Your forks are longer than the width or depth of this. Okay, so that's the most important lesson I learned today, is that especially in an area where, you know, it's okay if you just want one crate. Okay, one crate, you can do whatever you want. But let's say again, this was a real scenario. We have like 500 crates parked in the middle of the field, and some of them are 1 inch apart, some of them are 5 inches apart, but the fact of the matter remains that my fork was longer than this. Okay, and so what you want to do, you know, and I learned this great tip. There was another guy I was talking to, he operated a telehandler, you know, one of those Zoom booms. And I asked him, I said, why are the crates here? Like, this was a different location where they unload them from a truck, like a different, you know, kind of like a storage area. And I said, I'm just curious, why crates here are parked like, you know, a foot away from each other, where in the field they're just inch or 2 inches away. And he says, well, it's because most of the people here don't know these tips. He says you should not leave any space between crates when you park them. I said, really? So I said, how do you pick them up? And he says, well, you never go in fully with your forks all the way till, you know, this vertical part touch. You know, he says, what you do is, oh, and by the way, that crate, it had three cross members here. One was here, you know, underneath, right? And so he says, you only go as far as to grab this second, you know, horizontal bar. You know, you only, like, you leave like almost 2 feet, maybe even more, depending how long your forks are. But you go in, let's say this is a crate, right? This is your fork. You don't go in like this, especially when your forks are like this, they're longer, and you know there's a next crate here. So he says you go like this, you lift it slightly, and then you drag it, and then you go fully in, because now you know there's nothing in there. And he says that's the most important lesson when you deal with crates parked like this, right? Because if you go in, you know, let's say they're parked like this, right? And you put your fork like this, and then you try to lift this, you're gonna damage this, because your forks are gonna damage this, or they're gonna get stuck, and then you have to get out. So it's way safer to just, you know, when they park like this, just go half till you reach that middle bar, right? Like this. Then you lift it slightly, you drag it away from this crate, and then you go full in, and then you can raise it, and you can do whatever you want. So those are some really important lessons I learned today as I was moving these crates. And I'm telling you, like, honestly, I moved probably I don't know, 250, 270 crates. And just to reiterate, so have protection on your forks, right? Have protection. Be mindful of the area in front of the crate, some kind of a berm or a bank of snow. Don't go deep inside between the maze of crates, but go row by row. And if you have another machine working, stay on each on the opposite sides and try to do it in a circle. All right, and what else? And of course, forks position has to be correct so that you don't break the pallet under the crate. So as wide as possible. And you always remember about this second crate, especially when your forks are longer than the crate you're picking up. So hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Ciao.